Utter disbelief, total despair, major disappointment and dejection. Italy's failure to reach the World Cup final stage for the second consecutive time stirred up a lot of emotion. Yes, it was a surprise, but perhaps not a huge one, if you know the history of Squadra Azzurra and are aware of Roberto Mancini's specific character. Among the elite national football sides, Italy always had a special, their own place. We can call the reigning European champions an up-and-down team, unpredictable or bifacial, but the following definition would be probably the most precise and correct: the team of short cycles. The way that Squadra Azzurra went over the last 40-50 years shows us that this unconventional side is most dangerous right after failures and most vulnerable immediately following triumphs. Unlike Brazil, the perennial favorites of the most prestigious competitions, and Germany, the epitome of solidity and stability for decades, Italians were always famous for the dispersion of their results, being equal or rather almost equal to the best in the moments when they reached the peak. The four-time world champions had much more dismal campaigns. Entering the major tournament, Italy 11 times in total failed to reach even the quarter-final stage, whilst for Brazil and Germany, this height used to be an absolute norm. This kind of impermanence is often attributed to a pragmatic, defensive style of play, which is obviously a double-edged sword in the game when goals and wins have a paramount importance. But it's only a part of explication. Perhaps even more so, the specific mentality makes Squadra Azzurra so fickle and uncontrollable. This side historically have a distinctive soul, or DNA, if you will, and such qualities as showing off arrogance, complacency, and disregard for their opponents and for the hard work as well are definitely common for it. In the days of glory and big wins, all these shortcomings tend to activate, increase, and even blow out of proportion, especially if we recall how long, fervently, and masterfully the Italians used to celebrate. As a result, after a triumph, they start to consider themselves invulnerable, omnipotent, and immaculate, and sometimes simply forget how quickly football of high level punishes for these harmful thoughts. The gorgeous team that won the World Cup in 1982 faded away exactly in this manner, although almost all the heroes of that campaign, from Paolo Rossi and Bruno Conti to Antonio Cabrini and Giancarlo Antonioni, were in their prime. Well, in theory, in terms of age, but not in practice. That success made them simply unrecognizable, and the next 4 years Squadra Azzurra spent in the wilderness. There are some fresh examples indeed. We all remember how many plaudits and laurels Italy got after performances at the last 3 years, although in 2016 it didn't translate into a truly spectacular net result. But we all also know to what destructive consequences it has led later. The 3 following World Cups turned into a complete bust. It may sound odd, but it's true. Success not only relaxes Italian players, but is even detrimental for them and their professional growth. In general, of course, achieving some really good, even decent at times results, footballers from Serie A tend to blatantly overestimate themselves and take for granted future victories. It's especially applicable to the current generation of players, which is far behind the previous ones in terms of talent and skills. The vociferous and boastful Italian press only compounds the situation. Journalists from this country like to create stars and heroes out of nowhere after one good goal, pass, move, or even feint. Exactly in this manner, tall and physically gifted, but not a world-class goalkeeper Gianluigi Donnarumma abruptly transformed into a genius, a solid, modern and agile midfielder in the form of Jorginho suddenly turned into the main Ballon d'Or contender, and the young and inexperienced Nicolo Barella was moving into the same category as N'Golo Kante. Hearing all these groundless praises, Italian footballers start to believe that they are best in the world and immediately forget that their victories have been achieved through full commitment, thorough preparation and hard work. As for the individual skills, this Italian team is mediocre, and relying on this, it's doomed to fall. As for the head coach, he was as imperfect in this regard as his players. All the Mancini's prolonged biography is based on two things: quick success and eventual deep disappointment. Working at Lazio, Inter, Manchester City and later at Zenit, he everywhere got instant good results, courtesy to his skills and taste to the combinational, aesthetically pleasing football. In terms of fundamental knowledge, Roberto is certainly one of the strongest managers in the world. But after that, his personal weaknesses and lack of maturity and application invariably did let him down. Reaching one good result, albeit intermediate, he always visibly decreased the level of his efforts and started looking at himself with a morbid admiration. A narcissistic type of individual, Mancini is able to stay in this state of mind for months, and only a series of humiliating and painful defeats could get him away from this kind of activity and bring to normal work. As a result, Roberto has been fired from Inter only a few months after he was in the most comfortable and secure position there during his first stint at the club. Leading Manchester City to their historic Premier League title in 2012, only 1 year later, the Italian ingloriously parted ways with the citizens after a lackluster campaign. The events of last days showed that those cases didn't teach him a lot. Winning the Euro in style, the contemptuous Mancini immediately started to talk about the World Cup triumph, almost forgetting that he and his team need to qualify at first. Quite logically, this carefree attitude has been transmitted to the players. Italy simply left it to the last minute. Jorginho, who used to be a dependable penalty taker, has missed twice from the sport, in both crucial games versus Switzerland, and then, right before the last match day, Mancini suddenly felt the heat. A tough away game against the Northern Ireland brought only draw, which meant that Squadra Azzurra will have to qualify for a playoff. In that case, the pressure on Mancini has been absolutely relentless. After several pleasant months of complacency and resting on his laurels, he had to face harsh reality. March and April are traditionally tough months for the Italian representative, both clubs and national side, on the international stage, due to enormous fatigue that is accumulating near to the end of Serie A season. Getting weaker and weaker over a course of time, this competition nevertheless remains one of the most brutal and grueling. In the situation when the fate of vast majority of games decided by one goal and there is very little free space on the pitch, injuries, exhaustion and mental strain are coming thick and fast, and this time Mancini lost basically all the back four he used at the Euro, and also couldn't rely on the injured Federico Chiesa, whose energy and persistence would be very much welcome in this predicament. Which is even worse, Roberto this time also didn't have enough space to prepare, unlike the era when he had at his disposal almost a month in order to recuperate energy and train. Before the North Macedonia match, there were only a few days available to him, and this is pretty significant, bearing in mind that the team like Italy with no real stars and no prodigious individual skills need to be in great physical shape and must re-establish links in order to be fully competitive. The other reason of allure is the simple fact that being in the status of reigning European champions, the Italians were forced to more often operate against a tight and organized defense, and this has led to the massive issues, although Mancini is good in constructing positional attack, but only structure-wise, in order to create chances and especially convert them into goals. Every team needs the players of appropriate caliber. In this stressful moment, the lack of individual skills came to the fore. Even the likes of Domenico Berardi and Ciro Immobile, who are prolific in Serie A for years, doesn't fully meet the requirements of the big matches. On top of that, both of them are counter-attacking specialists, and this night Italy involuntarily played slowly and without any free room up front. As a result, quantity has never translated into quality. Out of 32 shots, only 5 reached the target, and there were even fewer the real chances to score. It's very telling that the best opportunity to take the lead came when Berardi intercepted the ball right in front of goal, but hasn't been able to shoot strong enough. As for the long and positional attacks, they weren't particularly sharp and inventive. All pointed to the overtime, and then the unexpected and inexplicable happened. In the rare Macedonian attack, Alexander Trajkovski, who knows the pitch in Palermo very well, caught Donnarumma Nepe with a long and uncanny precise shot, stopping not only Italy's incredible undefeated streak on their native soil in the World Cup qualifying games. He stopped the shot Mancini's successful cycle as well, leaving the hosts in utter disbelief. The state of mind from which those who support Squadra Azzurra surely won't emerge anytime soon.